meeting to order. Will everyone please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for. And I will entertain a motion now to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're now going to move on to presentations and information, and we're going to get into the a review and alignment of the 5-year facilities master plan. One of the things that I did want to note, members of the public may address the board regularly at any board meeting. That was really easy for me to say. Let me start again. Members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration of that item. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, normally what you would do is you would do so when that specific item is called by the board president, which we only really have one item on the agenda today, so that should be relatively easy. If you would like to comment and you are here in person, while we recognize it's going to be a little difficult sometimes to fill out a speaker's card before, what we will ask you to do is if you don't have time to fill out a speaker's card before, at least do us a favor and do one after, just so we can have your information for the record. If you want to comment online via Assembly Gamut Meetings, enter your name in the name and email, and the board clerk will provide your comment to the board, or not the board clerk, the board assistant. And then to submit your comment via YouTube, you can put it in the live chats comments, and once again, the board assistant will share your comment with the board as appropriate. For those of you who are commenting here, Ramon will be in the back. He's got a microphone. It's important that we get you to speak into the microphone so the folks who are watching us at home can actually hear what you have to say. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to the review and alignment of the 5-year facilities master plan. Mr. Hickey, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. President DeLuz, members of the board, district staff, and community stakeholders. So thank you for this opportunity. Can everyone hear me okay? Or echo? Perfect. Let me also thank Ramon, because all of the visuals that you see around the room, Ramon put those together, and so did a perfect job. I appreciate it. And it's going to help drive this conversation. And ideally, that's exactly what this will be, a conversation between the board, the staff, and the community. I'm just here as a facilitator as we generate this 5-year facilities master plan. What's the purpose of a 5-year facilities master plan? It's really just a comprehensive roadmap for school modernization, campus enhancement, safety improvements, accessibility compliance, infrastructure renewal, and a long-term stability plan for the Robla School District as it relates to available funding and the potential funding that may come forth within the next 5 years. And it drives a conversation around how the district wants their facilities to perform. The purposes of this facility master plan is to ensure compliance with California public school facilities laws and regulations, address aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance conditions, improve student safety and accessibility, replace inadequate and aging facilities, improve site infrastructure and drainage resiliency, enhance outdoor learning and recreational environments, establish phased implementation priorities aligned with long-term funding priorities. This list is generated from my various conversations. We've had several board shops on facilities. I've met with the superintendent often and her staff. And this is the purpose of this 5-year facility master plan. Are there any questions on what the purpose is? Facilities master plan alignment. So we just, in the state of California, we do not do facility master planning in isolation. because in most cases, districts are after reimbursements. So to receive reimbursements for funding spent on facilities, there's some alignments. You have to align with California Proposition 2 requirements, which is new. That's one of the primary goals here, so that whatever funding the district does spend on facilities, then that the district does qualify for reimbursements. 60% reimbursement on modernization, 50% reimbursement on new facilities. You have to be in alignment with Ed Code, California Building Standards Codes, DSA, California Field Act, California Safe Schools Act. That's going to come up often in our conversations, California Safe Schools Act, ADA, Green Building Standards, Office of Public School Construction Modernization Standards, and School Facilities Program Modernization Eligibility Requirements. Any questions thus far? What's the vision statement for the 5-year facilities master plan? Robla School District will provide secure, modernized, student-centered educational facilities that are code compliant and support academic excellence, operational efficiency, accessibility, safety, community engagement, and long-term stability. This is just a recap, bond measure H, that have been done. And as you travel throughout the district, it's evident that the district spent the $46 million from Measure H smartly. You have new facilities. And you would think, well, what's the purpose of a 5-year facility master plan if you've spent almost $50 million? You'll see after this presentation, there's still approximately about $150 million worth of work in the district to be done, even though you do have newer facilities. And the board has done a great job in Measure H, right-sizing the district, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done. And here are projects that are currently in motion. They've either just been completed or they will be completed this summer. Again, money being spent smartly. Okay. This should be a recap, everyone. Is there any questions from this list? Okay. Now let's really get into what it really takes to put a facilities master plan together. We've had several board meetings on facilities. The first one was maybe 2 years ago, approximately. We had a recent board meeting at the end of last year. And this is the culminating board workshop to help analyze that facilities master plan. So the conversations with the superintendent, her cabinet, going out. Of the stakeholder facilities and survey that went out. We collected data from all stakeholders. I think we had approximately 60 responses from that survey that went out. And from those responses, we've incorporated all responses. That was a facilities issue. Not all responses were related to a facilities issue. Ongoing facilities inspections, historical facilities relationship with the district as a facilities professional. I've been in the district for more than 5 years. So I have a history with the district as well. I spent a lot of time reading current codes, new codes. The building code is upgraded every 5 years. So I went through the building code to make sure the district was code compliant. The Safe Schools Act, there are some new codes in there. So there was code review. I looked at 5-year student enrollment projections that we had done approximately a year ago. I just finished up a workshop with the superintendent in the cabinet. And so some of the information that we will go over shortly is a result of that meeting that I've had with the superintendent and her cabinet, received feedback. This is the current board workshop we're conducting now. There will be feedback as a result of this workshop. And then the last step will be a board presentation in the future based on the board schedule and the feedback that we received tonight. Any questions on activities that has gone through, that has been completed to develop the information that we're going to share tonight? All of this culminated into what were the 5 goals. All these conversations comes down to what are the goals of the district. Replace inadequate ability, improve safety and accessibility, improve site infrastructure, enhance outdoor learning and recreation, improve long-term sustainability. Our facilities master plan. So this is a workshop. Feel free to walk around. If you're interested in a particular school site, the bottom poster that Ramon has presented represents the complete list of items identified as needed within each school site. That's what you see on the bottom. To the right, you see the estimates. Quite a bit of time is spent when conducting the facilities master plan, is also letting the district know what the cost potentially could be. Working with architect firms, construction firms, these are broad estimates. And while there's a large range, because it determines on the square footage, what's inside the square footage, the quality of the material. If you do it next year, as opposed to 5 years out, the cost of that construction. So that's why you have that large range. And the last exercise I went through with the superintendent and her staff was to take this much larger list, and I asked that team to develop top 5 priorities for each site. And this is what they came up with. So the large list is what I developed as your facilities master plan consultant. Prioritization I left to the district, President DeLuz.
What was the criteria you used for?
Actually, we established that in the prior meeting with the board. President DeLuz. Safety, ADA compliance was the one. Safety and security, classroom needs as related to enrollment, and then we built from the classroom out into the fields, playground area, outside of the campus. There's going to be a conversation around safe schools to act and your crosswalks. None of them are compliant. While those are on the extremes of each campus, it's a top priority because the first priority was code compliance. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you'll see almost on every, in every site, it has to do with safe schools. And just quickly, maybe not that quick. This is an example. The new state law and the Safe Schools Act and Safe Routes to School requires crosswalks to be crosswalk has to be painted, signs have to be posted. Most of it needs to be done. The difficult part, if some of you may remember at Maine, it was a Robla. We had the conversation around the flashing lights at the crosswalk. And there was a conversation with the city that went on almost 2 years, and we never came to an agreement. Also getting electrical power down to that crosswalk so we had the flashing lights, the city did not want to pay for it. So even though there was 2 years of discussion almost, that school is still also not in compliance because we never installed the crosswalk properly. So it's a code issue at the forefront of the district right now. We'll discuss, we move from the top 5 for each site to the top 5 for the district. We'll discuss those at the very end. And so, again, my much larger list, the superintendent and her team prioritize each school site, and from that list of 35, they narrowed it down to 5 based on approximately 7.5 million that the district has to spend on facilities. And that total, that top 5, I think 6.5, but roughly $1 million in contingency funds. And so we'll go over that shortly. Are there any questions on the visual display anyone wants to discuss? The item, the cost, the prioritization, Ms. Chen, was met. No questions, no comments, concerns?
Well, just a quick question, just looking back to the last bond, do we have a breakdown anywhere of what was spent, what was spent of that bond on which campuses and what projects?
I have it as a working knowledge because I helped spend most of it.
Yeah.
But it's something that we can put together pretty quickly because we
Okay.
do have records of everything.
All right.
One of the things that your previous CBO did, he
How much-
kept pretty
what
good
projects,
records.
what was done, what was done at each site out of those?
I will say Taylor, President DeLuce got the least amount of money. After Taylor, Glenwood got the least amount of money.
Well, Glenwood was because it's probably 40 years newer than any of the other schools, somewhere around there.
It was in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And even though
It's in need now. It's in need. I ain't gonna say it's not in need.
That's it, it's downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, they're all saying
if you
Well,
go if
For-
you go
for
back
those
to
of- Just real quick, for those of you who don't know, most of the schools in Robla School District were built around World War II era. So some of these facilities that you see are literally have been around for 80 years. So I realize newer is relative. It's a real relative. Newer is not new. How about that? The newest. There you go.
And,
But
So-
that was one of the reasons why at that time.
I was gonna say, I just celebrated my 45th birthday, and
Mm-hmm.
I went to Taylor Street Elementary School. Yeah.
So-
And it wasn't new when I went to school there, so.
now you mentioned Taylor, and Taylor does need a lot of attention. But Taylor was also part of the first bond. So are you incorporating that into your statement, or can you talk a little bit about that?
That's not, Trustee Barnes, that's not incorporated into my statement.
Mhm.
I go back approximately 5 years with the district when we first started these projects. As President DeLuz just mentioned, if you were here 10 years ago, these facilities were in extremely bad conditions.
Right.
Leaks everywhere. You could walk through and put your fist through walls. And so the board has done a tremendous job of right-sizing the school district.
Mhm.
And so for those who do not know, they've done a great job. There's just still work to be done.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so even though Taylor did receive some projects from that previous bond, this is on my personal opinion and my professional opinion. It's the remaining school that needs to be right-sized.
Mhm.
When you look at it, equity in facilities and spending and how you spend your funds, if you have $1, Taylor should be considered. If you have 100 million, Taylor should be considered.
Well, and I'm glad you say that, and I say that because Taylor Street is kind of a victim of timing, because the first bond was much smaller and we did what we could, but then when the bigger bond came along, we did just that, where we put a lot more funding in other places and Taylor kind of got left behind in that. So we did what we could, but it definitely lacked the attention that some of other sites had.
I echo that.
Mhm.
Again, I was here when the new construction began, so I know the before and after. And so I do echo that the board has done a great job. And it's going to take a new bond to address Taylor's issues. The district has, so that it's clear, the district has no money hidden anywhere to address any issues at Taylor. There's about 7.5 million available. Taylor probably needs to be rebuilt, which is about 50 million plus. To modernize it is about 26 million. Oh, and that's part of that discussion. How does that 5-year facility master plan look around all your sites?
Mhm.
Probably the greatest need again. As you can look at the data on the visuals,
Mhm.
the numbers show you that Taylor has the greatest needs in terms of the amount of the cost and the fees and the infrastructure that still needs to be rebuilt. Glenwood needs significant projects, but Glenwood is in really good shape.
Mhm.
It was built well, out of brick. It did receive, we modernized 100% of those classrooms. All the classrooms of the 21st century modernized.
The big challenge there is space.
Challenge there is
Yes.
space.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add while we're waiting for the microphone, and just because Taylor, we have representation from Taylor's staff and community members. One of the priorities is additional classrooms, but I want everyone to know that there is a round 5 for the pre-K TKK grant that was, which is now available. And Glenwood is actually the school, our next school that is available, and we have submitted applications for that, just so you know.
Sorry, I missed all of that because they handed me the microphone and I freaked out.
That's okay. What I'm saying that their round 5 for the pre-K TKK grant was issued, and Glenwood Elementary is a school that is eligible, so we've already put in applications to apply. A few years ago, Glenwood was awarded monies for, I think it's 2 TK classrooms, so Glenwood would be eligible for additional 4 classrooms.
For the TKK.
Well, it would be
grades.
the pre-K K is the grant. So I would say 4 classrooms available. 4 additional classrooms. 4 additional classrooms.
But that would be, those classrooms would be like how our classrooms are with the restrooms inside? Is that what kindergarten pre-K mean?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Primary.
yes.
Um,
But we do also have on the list that we understand there are 2 additional classrooms needed right away. We put in
Copy.
1 over this previous summer,
Mhm.
but we also recognize in the facilities master plan, there's an immediate need for 2 more. We'll get into the conversation on the panhandle, the projections from our previous board workshop. There may be the need for 9 additional classrooms district-wide.
okay.
But those are not immediate needs. Those may not be 5-year needs because panhandle development, there are no applications construction right now. And so that's not going to have impact on the district within 5 years. So that becomes a question. If we add that to the facilities master plan, but it's not projected to have an impact in the next 5 years. But it is recognized that Glenwood does need classrooms.
Okay. I guess what I was just trying to say before to support that is that we house the most students.
Yeah.
And we are bursting.
Mhm.
Like we have teachers in tiny little closets or, support staff in tiny closets. So that's just what I wanted to piggyback off of about the space.
And it's what you said is critical. You're bursting at the seams.
Mhm.
State of California does not allow a district to build for future growth.
Right, this is our current growth
I know,
though,
but-
like based off of.
So before, to gain eligibility, you have to burst at the seams, because then you have the numbers.
Mm.
Right? It's unfortunate. That's how we ended up in this, with all these portable buildings.
I see.
Years ago, that was the answer. Quickly put in portables. We
Yeah.
kept them too long. The good part about this
They were
district,
fun to teach in,
Yeah, right.
those portables.
and the good part about this district, you've gotten rid of all your portables essentially. There's a few left in Maine.
Yeah, we have a couple.
And so now you're building brick and mortar classrooms, which is excellent. And so the board is doing a good job of getting out of the portable classroom business. Now it's going to take additional funding to go ahead and right size and prepare for the enrollment.
So I think one of the other things to consider as we look at these priorities, these are priorities set up based on our values and the priorities that we've set up and need. The other thing, though, that we have to look at is matching funds. One of the things that we try to do all the time is we try to leverage our dollars. So if there's state dollars that are available in a particular area, that means that if we put up a dollar, if it's matching funds, well, if we put up a dollar, they put up a dollar. That means our dollar has twice the value. So sometimes projects will be changed in terms of priority because this project over here actually has matching dollars. So that's one of the things that we always have to keep in mind. And you'll notice some of these things are going to be priorities, but if they're not oftentimes classroom related, there's likely there's no state matching funds for those. So that then, once again, so stuff that's going on in the classroom is probably almost always going to have, or creating more class space or fixing up class spaces, probably going to have, I don't want to say a greater urgency, but a greater opportunity to happen because of those matching funds.
And Trustee DeLuce, since you have experience with the legislature, can you also talk a little bit about the timing of these matching funds and the application process and the payout and everything?
Did you want to share a little bit about the application process for some of these matching funds, the timing and all of that?
Absolutely.
Since that's what you did for us.
Yeah.
So let me start with this statement. Last November, two things occurred as it related to funding for facilities. The state passed a bond. The state has to have an active bond to do reimbursements. At the same time, 232 school districts, there are 1,159 school districts in the state of California, 232 put a measure on the ballot to pass their own bond. California is kind, the voters are kind to school districts. So 80% of those passed. A total of bonds that school districts now have as it relates to the election prior is 70 billion. The state bond that was passed is 10 billion. Everybody's not going to get a reimbursement. You have to get in line fast. It's first in, first out. A lot of school districts are no longer waiting for reimbursements. Because part of reimbursements is that you have to receive an audit at the end. Some districts just don't want to be audited. So that gives you an advantage as well. This district has done well in auditing process. They're comfortable with it. The books are open. And so this district has always received their reimbursements in a very timely manner. And currently the district is already in order to get more reimbursements. And so currently, most recently, CFW has done the reimbursement applications. They're one of the best in the state at doing that. They're very efficient. It's about a 6-month process, but you have to get your place in line, because if you don't, that 10 billion is going to run out.
What about the line? What about getting in line? And talk about the whole timeline from like the second we decide to apply for something to the actual payout.
So once you complete a project, the state comes and they do the audit, ensures that the money that they may give you or the money that they have given you was spent correctly. And once that audit is over, you qualify to put in applications for reimbursement. The project has to be complete through DSA. Once you turn in your paperwork through DSA that the project is complete, you can immediately apply for reimbursement. Once the application is put in, it's approximately a 6 month process before it is actually approved. And after that, it could take 6 months to a year before you actually see the money. And so if you do everything correctly, it's probably about a 12 to 18 month project, 18-month process before the district actually sees the money in the bank, right? And currently, where is it at? Oh, no, she's correct. I was going the wrong way. Right there. That's approximately what you have right now, and that's our reimbursements that you have received. So your reimbursement process is very robust here. Right. But again, CFW does a great job. This one.
On the one before that. The one that has the areas of emphasis. Yeah, so I just want to clarify that we have about 7 million in state reimbursements, and the current recommendation is to, I'm assuming that 7 million in state reimbursements is now in the general fund, and that is the recommendation that we spend the $7 million that we have in reimbursements on projects. Am I reading that, understanding that correctly?
So should I have you speak, Mr.? Okay. So we currently have about 7.5 million in state reimbursements from previous projects. But the recommendation for the general fund.
Where is that 7.5 million right now? It's in a building fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, building fund. And then if I recall, you, as a board, allocated about 7 million for from the general fund for the central kitchen, right?
That's an
Right.
old recommendation, correct.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
an old recommendation.
Yeah. And so when you were talking about the central kitchen and the cost to loan the project to be reimbursed for the 7 million that you would have gotten, and that would have been replaced what the loan is from the general fund. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I just
Thank
want to
you. Yeah.
clarify that was the
Yes, okay.
not like, oh, so not, I just wanted to be like, we have 7 million or we have 14 million, like which one is it? So.
Well, I'm pretty sure if I recall, when we had made when we made the recommendation, the idea was we knew we had a little over $7 million in reimbursements coming that we were going to use towards. We were like, okay, well, we can use it towards the central kitchen, but if we wanted to try and get the project going quicker, we could loan 7 million from the general fund and then reimburse it, and then basically then replace it or pay the loan back with the reimbursement. So now that we actually have the reimbursements in hand, I don't know that we still. I don't know that that's still part of the plan.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
That's also where I needed clarification if the final document that you will receive, does the recommendation still stand? Because you do have funding now, because you're correct. It was going to be a loan. Yeah. A great question. Hands up.
Hello. Sorry, is this an appropriate time to use my voice? Hello, my name is Maya Jenis. You've seen me before as the art teacher in this room. I'm here for a different reason. Thank you so much, board. Thank you, superintendent. Thank you, community. A giant shout out to my colleagues at Glenwood because we showed out and represented. So I want to appreciate us.
Absolutely.
I am here. I appreciate all the information and the open conversation. I'd like to advocate for some folks that are not able to advocate for themselves. First of all, I want to echo all of the concerns at Glenwood. And for some background, I've been in the district for 8 years, and I have taught in 4 of the 5 elementary schools. I've been through a lot of moves and modernizations. I would like to speak to the fact that our whole campus, in addition to other campuses, is in giant need of shade structure, not just TKK. It really skirts the line of OSHA standards for our kiddos to be out in the sun as long as they are. Our amazing librarian is right here, and her space is used during testing time for 5 different functions. So there are times when our amazing librarian has to be on a cart. During testing, we also share the space with RSP, with intervention. And for those of you not into the education acronyms, those are fancy words for our most vulnerable learners that are now moving into shifting spaces that are becoming smaller and not able to meet their needs, which is usually quiet and privacy and the ability to hear the support staff. I would like to just say that we are advocating for all of those students, and our students that are serviced by RSP and intervention and speech and ELD, they all deserve the space to do the work that is needed for them. That's just on behalf of my colleagues, but I'm also here for myself. For the fantastic art room at Glenwood, I wanted to offer you context because you might not know it. We, as of next year, are going to be the only elementary site without an arts space. Every other site will have an art room or a music room, except for ours. I am one of the people, I believe today we were told 14 staff members at our site have to pack up and move this year. I am one of those. But I would like to speak to the 520 alligator artists that come into the art room, because this is for them, not about me. We have 21 classes. We have approximately 520 kids. Right now, it's my 4th year teaching art, 2nd year at Glenwood. I service all of the kiddos 1st through 6th grade in a small classroom. I service TK and Kinder in their classroom. I want to also interject and thank Superintendent Chen. I reached out to her in desperation earlier in the year and invited her to shadow me in the art room, and I so appreciate her openness to do so. Superintendent Chen saw all of my classes for the day in multiple spaces and has a special perspective of the challenges involved in the art room. One major thing is superintendent couldn't sit down almost half of the day because we were out of seats. This is a challenge to our commitment to inclusivity. One of those reasons is that part of my job as the art teacher, in accordance with California visual art standards, is exposing students to a wide variety of mediums. What happens when I move to a cart and we lose the art space, for my friends who are not art nerds like me, we lose access to things like wet media, painting, printmaking, sculpture, all things that are developmentally appropriate. Our friends in TK and Kinder, it is developmentally appropriate for them to be working in big spaces with big sculptures, big paper mache, lots of things that I cannot do because of the space. And that is heartbreaking to me because I, like all of my colleagues, want to work to the top of my license. Also, our students who shine in the art room, who might not be reflected in their own classroom. I have students right now who have struggled all year, and we just started sewing, and they are shining lights, and they are so happy, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I also want to add that without the art space, next year during winter and rainy season, which in Sacramento lasts a long time, this means since we have no indoor PE space, our students are going to be indoors all day long from morning until afternoon, which I believe is going to lead to an increase in behavior. Lastly, I want to end with the students themselves. They communicate to me in writing on my parking lot in my classroom, not a real parking lot, it's an educational phrase. They give me feedback, verbally and written, that they want more space in the art room. A lot of the conflicts that happen in the room are purely because we're bumping into our neighbors. And I'd like to thank you for your time and end by appealing to your heart. So I wanted to show you, we just had our open house last week, and these are what my alligator artists said, thank you last time, for what they learned this year. I learned that losing helps you learn. I learned to be kind. I learned how to sew. I learned how to sew more. I learned to try my best. I learned to draw a portrait. I learned to sew by hand. I learned how to be so creative here, and this is my favorite subject. And I also, I'm gonna tear this up in dramatic movement. Sorry, guys. Okay. Why do they love the art room? I did not write this, I promise. It's fun. It's pretty and fun. I love to go to art. You can be really creative. Miss Janice is very nice, but I know that has nothing to do with it. Your imagination is your limit. I love the art room. I love the art room. I love to draw. And that was what they had to say, but I really just want to impress upon you that we do a lot more than drawing and painting. We are problem solving, we're collaborating, and I hear almost every day that my class is a room that people feel safe going to. So I really want to thank you for your time. And I know a lot of these things can't be accomplished next year, but I am here to please plead with you to think about these things in long-term planning because our site deserves the same equitable access to resources as the other sites. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I will add that an art room is probably the cheapest classroom you can build because it does not require as much infrastructure as the normal classrooms. So have to keep that in mind. But we do recognize that you do need space, correct? And the district, in my conversation with the superintendent and Mr. Logan and Mr. Langley, they had to take the 25 and develop their top 5, from the 35. And the infrastructure is ranked number 4. The shade structure at Glenwood is ranked number 4. Right.
Let me just provide clarity. That shade structure is for the TKK area, and Glenwood will have a shade structure along with all the schools but Maine that will be completed over the summer. But I do recognize that you need more. But I just want to state that the metal shade structure should be completed over the summer. But Project 4, why it has a little asterisk is because it wasn't on the original list. But I do recognize the importance of it, of not having shade structure over the TKK area.
I'm so sorry. I forgot to add on. We have our duty staff that are outside in that heat all day. So I just want to advocate for them as well.
The shade structures that Ms. Chen just mentioned probably should have been in about a year ago. The reason they're not, it's an ADA issue. When you put a shade structure on a school district anywhere, it has to be ADA accessible, ADA compliant from the parking lot to that shade structure. Every site had an ADA issue from the parking lot to the shade structure. The last one was Taylor, and it was very difficult for the architect to figure out how to resolve it through DSA. It was finally resolved about 2 months ago. The plan was approved, and now those projects are moving forward. But the issue was always getting the ADA access to the shade structure correct. Yes.
Can you clarify what that means? I guess what do you mean from the parking lot? Like the front parking lot?
So your shade structure is normally in the back of the school, correct?
Correct.
Right. But the law says that there's a shade structure, the ADA issue starts at the parking lot. Most school districts did not have an appropriate ADA compliant gate into that area where the shade structure was. Right. It was something as simple as, the yellow mat that has the buttons on it.
Okay.
That has to be there because if someone is in a wheelchair, they have to have access to it. Right.
Okay. I just wanted clarification or an example of what you meant.
Correct.
By that.
So if someone's coming to your site and they're in a wheelchair, they have to have an ADA compliant route from their parked car to that shade structure. All the way through the campus, right? Every campus had an issue. Taylor was the most difficult to solve because there was an issue at the gate. And the gate that they had identified as
Their
the
front gate.
at the entry gate did not have the proper matting or the slope within the sidewalks that was ADA compliant because of the new laws, right? It was compliant 10 years ago. When the law changed, it was no longer compliant.
And these are things that we learn in the process as well. So we're not experts on all of this. And so as we put these plans together, we're learning a lot of this just like you.
Yeah. The other thing you learn is what is compliant now may not necessarily be considered compliant a year from now or 2 years from now. They change the standards quite often. And what happens is they don't necessarily require you to change it now, but if you do any new construction, you build anything else new, they want you to then catch up on all the things that need to be compliant. So that all adds to not just the time that it takes to complete the project, but the challenge of just the difficulty of knowing everything you have to do to be in compliance, as well as the cost of the project, because all of those other things now have to be included in the cost of the project.
Correct.
So I guess my question would be, is Glenwood now 88 compliant for a shade structure, or is that something that we'd have to address first and then the shade structure?
All sites are now approved for the shade structures.
It would be easier to install that shade structure then, moving forward.
Yes, all of those projects should be complete end of the summer. In fact, we just had the drawings approved. I just saw the email today. All the DSA drawings have been approved.
And just for clarity, that's the metal shade structure. Yours is different. Your request is
Not
different.
ours won't be by the end of the summer.
So and just for clarity, when she says ours, she's referring to the TKK.
Okay.
We're on there. We're number 4.
It's number 4 on the district list, yes.
Sometimes they may miss stuff, and we literally will, until we submit plans for approval, we may not even know something's out of compliance until you submit the plans for approval. And then even then, sometimes in a double check, they'll come back and say, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you about this.
President Deleuze is correct. Sometimes we do not even know the law has changed until DSA kicks it back and says, you know what, you're not in compliance. Then we go look it up and say, oh, okay, it changed a year ago or 2 years ago. The codes change every 5 years. Anyone can bring forth through the legislation an act. Once that act is approved, it remains an act until the code is updated. They're updated every 5 years. So
this master plan for the facilities, that's within the next 5 years?
that's the recommendation, yes.
So within the next 5 years, we might be getting a TKK shade structure.
That's the recommendation.
If 88 doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then
Once it's approved, you'll get it. We'll just have to figure out 88 if the laws change. We just have to redo the drawings and get it correct.
sorry, I think this is the last thing I'm gonna say. I'm so sorry. So I just have a clarifying question. When it talks about, or when I read the blacktop restriping recreation improvements, when it is time to talk about what those are gonna look like, or do you know what those are gonna look like specifically, or will there be a time in the future where we can attend something like this to like give input?
That's how it has worked since I've been.
Or do you know the answers to everything right now?
That's how it has worked since I've been in the district. When it comes to blacktop striping, the school is given the opportunity to provide input.
Okay, because when the last time when our new playground was put in, we teachers were not asked for input. There's a lot of gates that don't make sense in our playground, or like age appropriate striping, I guess. So I'm just hoping that we get a chance to also give input on that.
I know at Bell and who else did we do just recently? The PE teacher has given designs. So there's an opportunity.
I mean, we are really looking into drawing a stripe ourselves for the bikes.
So my own personal experience, this board is extremely well to make sure that everyone in the district gets an opportunity to provide input, all the way down to the striping is on the blacktop. Yeah. Good questions.
And my
I'm glad you
apologies
guys
for
showed
us
up.
asking so much, asking you to use the microphones is really important because if you're not talking to the microphones, we use them as our library as well. So when we go back and look and listen to these videos later on, we can't hear.
Here are the projects that always drive robust conversation. Projects to be considered. This is always at the bottom of the list, so I put it at the top, right? New maintenance facilities. Currently, the district rents their transportation facilities. You've been renting it for years. And so it's just something to consider. You have the property in Norwood. Do you consider building a new transportation and maintenance facility? Therefore, you're no longer renting facilities. Just something to think about.
Is purchasing a piece of property or a facility that's maybe already built part of a consideration?
It had not until you just mentioned it. Now it is. Great idea.
We
correct?
got a decent amount of warehouse space in Robla.
Absolutely. A good idea.
That'd be cheaper
But-
than the 12 million.
But so everyone is aware, currently, these items are not part of the facilities master plan that I'm prepared to present to the board, right?
Mhm.
And so this is open conversation. Do we add these things? The 9 classrooms, again, they're probably 5 years out. Does it need to be a part of this 5-year facility master plan? It's your decision. Just replace Taylor Street. Why spend $26 million for modernization? And Central Kitchen, is it a closed conversation?
So with the money we're talking about with modernization over at Taylor, the first question would be, we're looking over here, Taylor Street. There we go. Where is it? So the question is, what do you consider when you talk about 52 million to replace it? What is that? Does that add classrooms, take away classrooms? Does a modernization, does that add classrooms or just upgrade classrooms? I mean, what is a replacement versus modernization look like?
What we did at Robla,
Mm-hmm.
replaced all classrooms over there
Okay.
with the admin building.
Mhm.
That would be a complete replacement. It's about 52 million.
That is the perfect explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With the exception of Maine, all your sites could use a new NPR. They're all small. Most of the kitchens are not code compliant. Taylor's the worst. You know, that's something to consider. And that 52 million would not include your NPR. Again, just like Robla, because Robla did not get a new NPR either in
Okay.
that new build, new construction.
All right. Then the other question would be, so you're talking about a new NPR at Glenwood as well?
Yes, with the exception of Maine,
Mm-hmm.
Glenwood is the best of the other 4.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're gonna look at going for a bond, I would look at replacing all your NPRs. Talking about space, usability, flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the district could do with much larger spaces than NPR. And if you're going to do the NPRs, then the Central Kitchen is not even necessary at that point.
Because you'd be replacing the kitchens that
You're
you say.
replacing the kitchens. Yeah. And I don't know if there's a loud voice in the district for a Central Kitchen anymore. But it's up to the board if you want to keep it alive. But the first kitchen, the first existing kitchen that needs some help is at Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that. I was just wondering if you can clarify what a central kitchen would do. Like, what was the discussion with that? About what a central kitchen does?
Director of Child Nutrition. State of California builds central kitchens around having a central location where you do food prep. That central location, you move food out. Financially, it can be more efficient. Operationally, it can be more efficient. It's probably cheaper than 4 new kitchens to build one. Right? But there's pros and cons to it. Right? There would be no real prep at the sites if you had that central kitchen. But you do have a warming issue, and you do, so there's some issues, but there was previous voices, for an example, Sac City built a $35 million central kitchen. I think the state of California just got into this trend of building central kitchens. There's pros and cons. I think what you have now works. The kitchens just need to be, you need new kitchens. Right? And if you do a central kitchen, you're taking up space. Currently, the conversation was on Bell Avenue. Bell is already running out of space. So that site administrator would give up a lot for a central kitchen. Right? It's eating up into the playground space there. So they're losing playground to a central kitchen. So that's just a quick summary of it.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, we had our multicultural after school night, so we were a little late. Sorry if I ask questions about things that we already talked about. But I do see the Taylor Street office relocation and security entry is a high priority, which is great. My classroom is the furthest from the main gate. So I can't stress that enough, how important that is, because I have parents showing up to my classroom all the time without visitor passes. No one's checked in. And if they can make it all the way across campus, we have a big problem. For example, we just finished CASP testing and I had a parent knock on my door 20 minutes into CASP testing, which means all of our gates should be closed. Their only point of entrance should have been the main gate, and the fact that they made it through the main gate and across the entire campus to my door is problematic. But I do want to reinforce the fact that I see down here the security fencing and gates. We can move the main office, fix the main office, fix the main entry point. But if we aren't fixing the other fences that we have around campus, which are also problematic because, like I said, where my classroom is, it's the furthest from the main gate. My teaching partner and I have afternoon recess, and we have quite often former students or random community members entering from the far corners, coming around the backside of our classrooms, which is the exact opposite way of our main gate. So I just want to point out the fact that we can move the office, reinforce the main gates, but if we're not fixing the additional fencing, we're still going to get people coming onto campus who are not identified, don't have visitor passes. So this still feels really important to me and part of that safety piece, which is, I think, ultimately what we're going for, which is trying to close off our campus to people that shouldn't be on campus or that are invited on campus, but they just need to check in.
I want to add to the fencing conversation. We need fencing. But the biggest to enter and to leave. One of the things that I know has occurred since Ms. Chen has been here, she's been adamant about the check-in process. No matter what campus you're on, just checking in with the front office. Because I do a number of things in the district, I'm on campuses all through the day. And very seldom does anyone ask who I am. If the gate is locked, I can get anybody to come open that gate for me. A lot of it is in issues in your policies and your procedures and your process, right? I'm glad that I look like I may be honest, but I'm speaking from my own lived experience. So the issue really isn't the gate or the fence. It's how you function, operate around that gate or that fence. Because until you build 10-foot fences is only for honest people, right? A thief is going to get in anytime of the night. So, but how you secure your facilities around processes and procedures, and everybody's complying with those processes and procedures. While I have a district badge, because I forget it at home quite a bit. I've never had a problem to get on the campus without going to the office first. So it's training. So keep that in mind. You need fencing, but you put up fencing and no training.
Totally
yeah,
agree with you. Oh, sorry. Could I just add one thing? Totally agree. I think that doesn't take care of all the dogs and random animals that come on campus all the time as well, because we can train everybody to not allow people to open the gates or train people that this is the process. But the dogs that come in and out of our campus, again, along the fence lines over by our classroom, it doesn't matter if I tell the dog to leave or stand there. They're going to make it through anyway. So there are those pieces that I feel like aren't going to get fixed unless we find those. I mean, we have weird chain link fences that then turn into legitimate fences that work great. And then we have big gaps, and Laura and I are chasing off dogs all the time. And so, to your point, yes, 100%, that is part of it.
I agree. Belabor the point, but the dogs get in the same way I get in. Someone just let me in.
And well,
Well, that's a Mark Langley
Yeah.
issue.
no.
That's deferred maintenance. He needs to fix the holes in the fence.
Exactly, and so that's what I wanted to respond to, because I understand what you're saying, and I understand what Mr. Hickey is saying in the sense that, yeah, there's training and there are fences, and I mean, like, a 6-foot fence actually does not stop a lot of people. So that is a philosophical question to deal with. But what I hear you saying is that a dog shouldn't be able to walk in the campus or something like that. And so if there is a hole in the fence, that is not, to me, that is not part of this right here. That's something that we're supposed to fix right now. Okay, so I hear what you're saying.
Get on it, Mark.
Thank you for that, Board Member Barnes.
But really quick, while we make gesture of it, we're not making light of it. Okay. So understand that.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say your comments were a little invalidating and a little frustrating to hear. You probably didn't see last board meeting where the parents and community of Taylor came and shared a very long and lengthy list of the issues they were facing, and I felt for you guys really, really bad. And I just feel like your comments were a little too light and didn't really feel like you heard what they were saying. And as someone who was there, like, that just felt a little inappropriate. But I also want to say, like, there are little things that I'm not seeing on here that I want to know how we can fix them, that I don't know if they're included in here. Like at Glenwood, there's a sign outside of the office that is a map of the school. It's outdated by a lot, but it's still a map that tells you where there are classrooms of children that should be taken down for safety measures. Like, we don't post maps online, but if somebody wanted to, like, case the school, they can walk up and go, oh, I can probably find kids here. I can probably find kids here. And one of the parents from Taylor shared last week that, when Uvalde happened, they were looking at leaving. And I will say that, like, as a parent, when that happened, yeah, my friends and I were like, how can we make a homeschool co-op? How can we not send our kids out of our homes if we don't have to? And we pursued that for months very seriously. And not to say that we don't both have have all of our children in public school now, but we get concerned when things like that happen. And, those kind of people, at least a little fence, it provides more safety of mind, and it provides that extra barrier for them. And that's really what they were looking for. It's not just the fences. Like, I really recommend going back and watching that, getting their list that they provided to the board, because it was extensive. And I know that you see it because you talk about security reconfiguration, but, like, to me, that sounds like an extremely high priority. I don't really understand why it's not number one unless this was made before then. Because if I'm like, I would not want my child going to that. And I feel so much for all the children that go to your school. But, like, for me, yeah, it's seeing that sign. Like, how do we get that sign taken down from Glenwood? How do we get it removed? That shouldn't be there. Anybody can walk up and see where there are kids, and they can make their own plans. And we know that these people have connections to schools usually when they're carrying out these acts. So like that's a concern for me as a parent that I would like to see addressed either in this master plan that like signage is taken into consideration and where is it? And I want to know like, it's not, I know that these aren't super detailed and the online plans weren't super detailed, but like that's kind of where we're looking at and thinking as well and want to know, are you thinking of that too? Because it's when it's not in there, we don't know that you're thinking of that and taking that into consideration.
Thank you for your comment. I will say that my time in this district, I don't think there's been more conversation about Taylor Avenue. There's been more conversation on Taylor Street School than any other school. So I think the board here, in my opinion, is very sensitive to the needs of Taylor. And the list and the dollar amount kind of conveys that as well. And so I don't think there's anything missed on Taylor.
I have a question. Some of these pieces seem extremely big and they are going to take more money than what we actually have. My question to you, Superintendent Chen, is like, what is like low hanging fruit and what are things that we can do right now? I'm a homeowner in the area. I put a fence up around my house, cost me a couple $1,000s, right? And so I understand that what we put up at schools is not what I put up at my house, but it feels like something that is reasonable and something that wouldn't have to wait until something like this. And then thinking about signage, like now we get my screwdriver and take it out right now. Like, so I'm just like wondering what are things that we can do without having to wait for, figuring out how we're going to spend our $7 million.
Absolutely. I think so. This is the conversation for the facilities master plan. And you are correct. What you see on priorities, whether it's what we came up for the district on how to spend the 7 million, if we had unlimited money, we would do everything, right? So the situation regarding the signage at, Glenwood, for example, that's the first of I heard. Does it have to come in a facilities master plan conversation? No. Absolutely can address something like that, look into it. I'd probably send Mr. Langley and say, take a look at it, because there are certain projects that we definitely can handle, like our deferred maintenance plans, absolutely. And so those are the things like, we can write down, like I wrote down, and we can take a look at it, or Mr. Langley's here, and he could absolutely take a look at that. But, and we don't need this conversation to do that, just like in the conversations maybe 18 months ago when we were talking about outdoor learning environment, right? We didn't use the 7 million because we used other funding and was able to put 3 fields at 3 sites, right? And so absolutely, if there's things that it's not in here, it's not going to be all inclusive because it is not going to, we do have additional funding for somewhere else. So I'm going to use an example. Where is preschool?
Preschool's over here.
So preschool, for example, one of the projects is fencing and gate, and it's 500,000 to 1.2 million, right? That's not even on there, even though it is a priority for preschool, but preschool has additional funds that they can use. We just want to be transparent that we heard the feedback from that group that we know we need to have certain fencing in that play area. It's not going to make, it's important to there, but it's not going to be there because they have specific funding, right? But when we talk about the 7 million, right? And when we met with Mr. Hickey, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Langley, these are the things that are really, really important. And the board has to give direction, because it can take all 7 million and a whole lot not happen, right? But the situation at Bell Avenue in terms of their storm drainage is huge. Mr. Langley will tell you that they deal with it every year, and every year we have sandbags, right? Now, if it takes almost all of it, now if we chose not to do anything, anything to address that, then we have 2.5 million plus, to have access to do some of the other projects. But we wanted to make sure that it was evident that Bell's situation really is something that we have to give attention to, right? And, Portable D, which is right here, I think we all noticed that at the last board meeting, right? Taylor Street, whether it is office relocation, that security issue, we know is a priority, whatever the option is. And, why have the Glenwood shade structure? Because it wasn't on the plan, but I do believe that that is a priority, right? So if we were looking to use the 7 million, later on, you will all give me direction on how we can get some of these projects in motion, right? And to be transparent, we do have that money now, right? So it's not like you give me direction and it's not going to happen for a year now. I don't know how long it is, but we can get things moving, right? When I receive direction on how you want to prioritize some of the projects. Now, our recommendation here, can absolutely be replaced with something else. But I wanted you all to know in terms of priority, right? Those are the 5 issues that I believe, not minimizing any other issue, but I believe that we have to really give attention to. So.
Yes, thank you.
Questions? Yes.
This might be just maybe something that I can look up, like Google or something, but when finding companies that are able to do all of these things, is there a process that you all take to pick what company does what? Is it based on cost? Is it based on quality? How does that get negotiated?
It starts with a cost estimate. In the state of California, there are different requirements depending on the estimate of the project. It's only a couple of thousand. The district can get 1 or 2 quotes and just bring it to the board for approval. Once it's above 200,000, it has to go to a formal bid process. And that formal bid process includes a request for proposal has to be publicized in the local newspaper for 14 days and a number of other ways to advertise it. Then they collect sealed bids, and those sealed bids are open on a date that's advertised so the public can attend. And the state of California requires that bid to go to the lowest bid as long as the bid is responsible and responsive. Responsive is it has addressed every question on the request for proposal. Responsible means they didn't give such a low price that it's unbelievable. Right? So once it's responsive and responsible, the state of California says public agency has to take the lowest bidder. If it's less than 200, the board does not have to do a formal process. But what this district has always done has gotten 3 proposals, and they still take the lowest responsive bid. Seems like you have another question.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering, when they're sending their proposal, and if it's the lowest, you take the lowest one, how does that compare to quality of the project being done? So if we're getting like these new classrooms, then you're taking the one that's the lowest because it's cost effective. But what if their quality doesn't match up to that?
You control that in your scope. You can scope specific material. You can scope as to the detail as possible so that you can somewhat have a narrative that may help you with the quality. At the end of the day, you're correct. It does rely on the contractor and their ethics. And so the better you write your scope and the more detail, but everyone has to bid on the same scope. So that's a good point. If you don't put details in your scope, it could be a low bidder and they have planned to put in cheaper material, correct? And so it's good to put in material, as many details as you can. Yeah. Sometimes you can even spec out the paint and the brand of the paint and where you want that paint purchased at, because if you do not, you'll get a really cheap paint.
A lot of the companies that you wind up that do public school construction type projects, there are a lot of them are the same companies. A lot of the general contractors that we've worked with are this, they're very familiar with them. So you get to know both by working with them and by reputation who does good work, who does shoddy work. So that's one of the real good ways in which you can mitigate against low quality work.
Correct. Mhm. But it is a problem, so good point.
I'm just thinking. I am a TK teacher at Glenwood, so I'm in one of those new buildings, and like some of our doors are already starting to like come off, and then the windows like they get like moisture inside of them, and that can lead to mold. So I think I'm just concerned about like if we are taking the lowest bid, how does that compare to quality? Because those classrooms were built what like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and I mean, they don't seem like big issues in comparison to like what other schools are going through. But if it's to me, it's very fairly new, and I don't know how much that was for that to now be happening.
So this is no excuse. It's a explanation. The economy is doing extremely well. The labor force is thin. So you have a contractor that would bid on several jobs, and you never know what part of his labor pool or her labor pool you're going to. So sometimes it comes down to the labor itself. And in this country, we got rid of the trade schools, so people are not really well trained anymore. So if you get someone who's maybe new to the trade, and that particular contractor has a number of projects, you may get someone whose labor is not as high in quality as you wish. So it becomes a luck of the draw. But again, there's a number of things historically we try and do to at least mitigate that. But some of it, you can't mitigate all of it.
The other challenge sometimes is some of the more well-known, some of the more reputable is not the word I want to look for, but some of the, we'll call them the top tier construction companies, they only want to do big projects.
Correct.
So sometimes it can be a challenge getting them on small, so we're already a small district, then getting them on a small project in a small district sometimes can be a challenge.
That's a big issue. Not just the labor, but the architect, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great question.
In the last few years, I've been here for, I've been bed and the board, and since last year and this year's, I've been seeing more and more parents' involvement, teacher involvements, and that is really good to see because before that, nobody. We was in a meeting here. We had the administrators and us, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have all these people. They are interested in the schools and the teachers and in the building. You said your building is about 4 years old, and say you there every day. If you see something wrong, please let somebody know. Let the maintenance department know. No, let the principal know, and the principal follow up because we could be in warranty. We could be follow up to see what's going on. But if we don't know until 4 years later, there's nothing we can do about it. So we really need you guys to be our eyes and our voices, and it's really important. If you see something like the board or the map, there is something, communicate, send it to the principal, say to somebody, little things like that. They can bother you, it can be solved like that. And it doesn't involve any big money and any big process. Yeah, I am glad and happy to see you guys involved, and it really, really is nice to have these new voices in here.
With that said, I would also like to just thank you. With that said, I would also just like to extend an invitation to all of you. My classroom door is always open. You can always come and hang out with us, get overstimulated with the TK friends. But I would definitely love to see, more school board members on campus and walking around and getting to know our students. I think it really helps create, a connection with what's going on in our school district. And I think it helps involve parents as well.
I got one. All right. When will the soccer lines at Taylor on the turf be completed? yellow soccer lines that are not completed on our turf.
We'll have to revisit that. To my knowledge, all the soccer lines on all of the turf that was installed as designed. And so if it's not, did you see the original design? Or you just think the stripe should be different?
Well, I helped with the design of the turf, the soccer lines. So Glenwood has 2 fields, Bell has 2 fields, and we have 1.
So the company that did install the new turf, we will revisit that with them.
We will revisit that because if I am correct, the lines at Taylor were drawn based on the specs and we corrected it. So Glenwood would reflect Bell's, but we do need to go back and do yours.
I think that also though speaks to, I think, something that Trustee Cardona was saying. You know, if you can help us by being our eyes, what's that saying? See something, say something, let us know, let the district know. In writing is always easier than just telling someone, because if you send like an email to the principal, it makes it real easy for the principal to send it to someone in facilities or something like that. But helping us with those things, because some of these things we're talking about are things that sound like, you know, we can take care of or need to be addressed now. If it's something that we just had built, well, then obviously that may be something that we can take to the builder sooner rather than later. Sometimes I think what happens is, you know, I tell you that I noticed it, and then what happens with it. So always making sure that someone's in a position to either pass that along the line to someone where it can get someone who can get it done or can address it will always be helpful.
Yes, and I want to emphasize that because we're hearing a lot of different things and stuff like holes in the fence at Taylor. That's stuff that we're going to say, send Mr. Langley out there and have him take a look at that and tell us what needs to be done, because that's not something that, you know, we need to discuss here. So we do need you to be our eyes and ears and tell us this stuff, because I'll admit that I have not been out to the sites as much as I would like to be. And hopefully I'll be able to fix that, but we need to hear from you. And that report at that board meeting was definitely eye-opening. Yeah, that's not something that we need to discuss here. That's something we can jump right on.
But the turf issue, how can you get that information to me? I'll take care of it. So I'm in the district every Thursday, most Thursdays. So, but otherwise, if you get a message to Ms. Chen, I'll come pick it up.
Is it possible that maybe the district could make like a central email for like maintenance concerns or something like that? Or can you share that more widely with parents and maybe teachers? Because I think a lot of times our communication channel, or like my thought process at least, is like, I'll tell my principal probably has like 100 million things right on her mind and to-do list, and the you know, slightly less number of things that she's trying to bring to the superintendent to talk about when she has her meetings and check-ins, and maybe my item falls off the list, right? And that's understandable. But if there is some perhaps direct shared email that the board or somebody could have, that's like, you know, again, maintenance, or I don't know what it is, or if there is one and you can share it, then maybe, you know, Ms. Giselle could just email that one every time she has a concern, or someone else could, and then you have that already directly from us instead of going through these like middle channels.
Yeah, I'll address that real quick. We don't have an actual email system for that. What we do have is in the district, we have an electronic work order system. It's called School Dudes. And any staff or anyone on the site can submit that. That goes to whatever department needs to work on it, maintenance, IT, food service, any of those. So we do have an electronic thing for these issues like this. Now, no, parents cannot submit on the School Dudes. It's only internal with our staff. But if you are a concerned parent, I would recommend talking to the principal, and those issues can, so I believe we have what's called Parent Square. I don't know if that's usable for that type of communication.
And I think thank you for that comment. And so I think what I would ask Superintendent Chen and her staff, it seems like it shouldn't be too difficult to make an email, like one email, like, you know, facilities at Robla, whatever, so that parents can just send an email. Because I think that it does help with this idea that if you see something like this is my way of saying something, and maybe we can put a post in Parent Square, so then parents have it, they can bookmark it, and then they can use it to like send messages a little bit later. To me, that seems simple, but I'm not the tech person.
Well, yeah, and since we
So,
have a
yeah.
tech specialist here, maybe we can create a form that allows anyone to contribute and also list certain topics. So you can click a topic, maintenance or whatever, and then be able to submit that, and it goes. I mean, I don't know. We have tech experts around, so I'm just
Just really
saying.
quick, I do want to add for families that are listening here on our website under the About Us, there is a contact section. So typically that goes into our enrollment email from the front office staff, and we can divert those emails to either the site or specific department needs as well.
Okay, let me remember what I was going to say. I think, School Dude is great. I think we put a lot of trust into the people that we communicate with in terms of what we are experiencing in the classroom, and assume that it gets passed on to whoever it needs to be passed on to. But like insignificant things with our classroom renovations and the desks and chairs that we have in our rooms. I mean, my wheels don't lock anymore. The chairs don't go up and down. The cabinets fall or the drawers fall out of the cabinets that we have. We have lots of things that are going on, some of which I could probably submit a School Dude for, but is that going to be passed on to someone else? I don't know. I've had my whiteboards fixed in my room a million times, and I don't know that anyone knows about that. And then in terms of things like safety concerns, I mean, in my first 3 years in the district, I think I had 2 incidents with kids with weapons that were brought onto campus. One in my classroom who like shot another kid with a BB gun in my room, and like what happens there? No idea. During COVID, I had another kid show up on Zoom in a full ski mask holding a gun, and then 2 days later they were at school. And so those things get passed on to our administrators, not my lovely one that I have now. But I think that it is assumed that we pass that on to the people who are in charge, and that those things will get taken care of or passed on to you lovely board members. And then we will come up with some sort of approach or way to deal with those things. And I don't know whose responsibility that is, but it seems like something we should be talking about a lot more, because in a 3-year window, I feel like nothing happened. And that's, I mean, I could come up with more things about kids showing up with knives and things like that. And it's just like, it seems like we're not having conversations around what that looks like. And I understand that that's not necessarily related to the facilities, but it ties into the conversation of how are we communicating with each other, and who does that need to be communicated to? And I just don't think that those lines of communication are clearly drawn or clearly communicated to us that are in the classroom with kids.
I think those are some really, really valid points. And I think you're also right. It's not necessarily at the core of our conversation today, but definitely should be something that's discussed at a future workshop or board meeting. What I would like to do is make sure we get back to the 5-year facilities master plan discussion. So does anyone else have any additional questions or comments regarding the master plan?
Well, I sure hope that this is about the master plan. I guess when school due got brought up, one of the frustrations as a teacher is when our classrooms, like the technology isn't working the way it's supposed to. And I've been in this classroom since 2022. My technology has never worked properly. If you go back on my school dude, you'll see years of me, every 6 to 12 weeks adding, the sound is going out, the TVs are turning off, I can't connect anyway. So that being said, so a lot of times little things are fixed here and there, but like the greater issue is missed. And then that does tie in because with maintenance specifically, like our gates are tied with zip ties and like rotting pieces of wood, which is how dogs get under because the wood that was put in the fence that's broken, is now deteriorating. So sometimes things are fixed through those communication processes, but they're not done properly or to like a standard of care where they need to continue to be fixed.
I will say to that, part of complying with Proposition 2, the district has to have a deferred maintenance plan. That was the first piece that I did. If you think this list is long, the deferred maintenance list is a mile long because it's the little things that get us every day, correct? This is what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And also associated with that list that's a mile long is a cost as well, which is much larger than this cost. So the board members' point, even though it's difficult, you have to stay at it. Because Mark has a limited staff. Not only does he have a limited staff, he has a limited budget. His budget comes nowhere close to covering all those calls. And that's something that every district in California, we have to figure that out. We don't put as much money into deferred maintenance as we should, simply because we can't. It becomes a funding issue. It's one of those things that you just have to stay at. Stay at Mark, stay at the district. But the deferred maintenance list is massive. Some of you are much younger than I am. I said it earlier, I don't think you were here. I knew this district before all this work began, all this hard work the board has done. They have done tremendous work. There's just still a tremendous lot. There's a tremendous amount still to be done. And so how we do that, it's going to take money. It's probably going to take an money, it's staffing. I think everyone here is very sensitive to that need because that's all I hear as a consultant, concerns that they can't get to. But you're going to have to continue to be the eyes and the ears and the voice, and sometimes you might have to say things more than you would want to. I was in a conversation with Mark, Mr. Lang, Mr. Logan a few days ago. Mark is begging for funds. These things need to get, he just doesn't have the money. So then so you're doing the right thing by making it, bringing it to the board. And while it's not a facilities maintenance issue, it is a maintenance issue. So it's part of the greater conversation that we're having. And so I built out a tool. It's a facility maintenance toolbox. And it's already loaded with projects, from doors that don't operate, don't close properly, to fencing, to a number of issues. But the district is going to have to figure out how to put money toward that. And that's why we're trying to figure out how do we put money toward these projects that are prioritized. And if there's anything left, then maybe we can have an impact on what Mark is trying to do, if that makes sense. It's difficult circumstances. Unfortunately, most of the school districts, we're not like Palo Alto. They got people leave them billions of dollars, and it's a school district, right? And so, yes.
I wanted to offer a solution to having parents do like school dude. I don't know if all campuses have that check-in like computer at the front of the office, but maybe we can somehow configure that to have like a school dude option where they can log in and then do their school dude and walk out.
It's a good idea. I have a question for Mr. Hickey. So
Yes.
the Bell Avenue storm water drainage issue. If we pursue this, is this going to eliminate the problem, or is it going to eliminate the problem? Because what I don't want is for us to put a lot of money into this and then find out we should have put something in that was 12 inches instead of 10 inches, and now we're finding out that we still have a little bit of a problem. Now this is going to fix whatever the problem is. It's going to go away completely.
Yes, and real briefly, the concern is that the existing campus is at a higher elevation than the new campus. So the issue is the architect did not account for the difference in that grade. So all the water from the existing campus rolls down to the new campus, and that's why it floods.
Okay.
And the drain line that should have went in, if you go there now and look at it, right under the stairwell, it was engineered out because of cost, the main drain line that you needed. So we've done some modifications, but because of how the wind blows and how that water rushes down, we have not been able to mitigate all of it. And so this work is necessary if you're ever going to solve that issue.
Okay.
Right? And again, a design firm may come in and this cost may be even lower, because someone really needs to tell us how to solve that issue. But the issue is where it floods, the grading the levels are different, which is causing the flooding. And that design should have been addressed, but it was not. Again,
Okay.
as Mr. DeLue said earlier, we always hope to get higher quality assistance in school districts, but sometimes the design teams fail us too.
Okay, well, it'd be nice if the design came in lower, but to be honest, no matter what, the costs always come in higher and increase. And I've never seen, well, I can count on one hand the time the costs were actually lower. So I'm not really.
And the conversation is that design firm is holding them accountable to some of that expense. So this conversation has been going on for a year on how much money you're gonna get a district because of this error. And they recognize the error. We just have not come up with a dollar amount to attach to it. Exactly.
I don't know. My experience with Bell Avenue, and part of it's just because of the poor planning in this part of the city of Sacramento, period. I mean, for those of you who don't know, North Sacramento became part of the city in the 1960s. And so there was a lot of construction and whatnot that happened out here that didn't have the same sort of overhead and same sort of maintenance, same sort of accountability that a lot of other places did. And Bell Avenue, that whole area, it's like every time we dig into the ground, we find something new. It's I love the students, I love the families over there, but the piece of land is like a money pit. I hate to say it, but it's always a challenge every time we're dealing with something over there. And this grading issue is just another one of them.
And it's not just a flooding in the classroom. It's a stormwater issue.
Yes.
And we know the issue. It's a break out in the middle of the streets. The city just won't fix it.
Yes.
We know the problem. The city just refuses to fix it. Yes.
Thank you, board and Superintendent Chen, for your time. I think this is a very valuable conversation. The talk within the community, I've heard it a couple of times that the teachers are the eyes and ears of the community, but we are the community. The board members live in the community. So that conversation should really be initiated by the board members. So maybe you haven't heard something in 4 years, and that's reflective of your involvement in the community. But one of the things that I've been taking a look at is the numbers. One of the major responsibilities of the board is the fiscal management of the district. And I think Robla comparison, I had a conversation with a few members of the team earlier last week. Robla is in a position unlike Sac City that's in a $200 million deficit. We're not in that position, thankfully, and I think part of that is a good administration of the board. But when I see these numbers, and unless you all have received some different information, they're very broad and almost generic numbers. So I guess my first question out of a couple is how do we get to, I'm taking a look at Glenwood's ADA compliance upgrades. How did we find the 750 through $2 million kind of area? Is that just, did we go to Dollar Tree and check out what the laminate there was and then go to Floor and Decor and check out what the laminate there was? What's a comparison structure? Is this based on actual purchases or actual contracts that we received in the past few years? Or is this just kind of a broad projection that ChatGPT kind of made up?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that statement because I wrote that in my notes too.
Oh.
Because I think that's a real question, right? Like, how much does something cost? Are we just supposed to go off of an estimate? Are we supposed to pick a number in the middle? Like how do we know? And when we're looking at these priorities, it doesn't feel good to me either to be like, what I like not have an idea of exactly how much something like this could cost. And I think, going back to what President DeLuce said about, the costs keep going up, right? And so then not having like a real idea of like exactly how much something's gonna cost feels very burdensome. And I do appreciate the district for being mindful about our budget and being mindful about the funding because there are so many factors, right? We have people factor, we have kids factors, we have facilities factors, like all of these things. And so I do appreciate that comment because that is a question that I had too. Like, how do we know, like, what is realistic? Because this feels very vague and generic, like you said.
And when I look at just the general numbers, again, looking at Glenwood, and part of the reason I'm bringing up Glenwood so much is the amount of community involvement. I had a question for Superintendent Chen, and this may not be legally compliant, but there are things on there like the NPR facility construction or even a modification. Would it be possible, and including the other schools too, to tap into something like the community schools grant to use funds from that since it's contributing to the building of community schools? Is that even for outside shade structures that can potentially be used for outside events? So when looking at that, I think that was my biggest concern is that one of the biggest traps the board can be led into is very broad and general pricing without having an actual benchmark to go off of, right? Because realistically, going back to my first example, the ADA compliance, we can say that it's between $750 and $20 million. And then we end up with a contractor that's overcharging because I think it's common knowledge that government agencies are often pay the most for contracts that shouldn't cost as much as they cost. So that was my first kind of anchor question is how did the team develop these ranges? And is there some realistic benchmark that was used to develop these ranges?
So I'll give you an example. If you and I were going to buy a suit, correct? Initially, the suit we desire controls the cost, right? I could buy a suit at JCPenney's, or I could buy a Tom Ford suit. They're both a suit. So you control the cost initially by your scope. If you can build a classroom, what do you want in it, right? You want laminate floors? You want one of them floors? What color paint? What do you cover the walls with? Solid wood desks? Particle board desks? So you control the cost by your scope. And so the idea here is not to tell the district what they should be purchasing, but say, here's your window, right? But what do you want to provide your students, right? You want to give them a Toyota, you want to give them a Rolls Royce, right? And so, and then there's the time value to the dollar, right? What it costs you to build today is not going to be the same as it's going to cost you to build tomorrow. So some of those numbers are 5-year projections of what it could cost 5 years from now if you don't do it today, right? And so there's a large amount of data that comes into cost estimating down to the final number is that GMP that the architect gives you, or the architect helps the construction firm give you. And to some of your point, it's escalated, correct? But they control the market. So it becomes the market value of construction. And so before COVID, to build NPR it was $450 per square foot. It's $1,000 per square foot now, right? That's the same material. And change the material, right? You want wrought iron fence, or do you want the metal fence? So you can control the cost of your fencing by the material that you choose. You can control the cost of your fencing by the linear feet that you choose to replace. One of the things that we did at Bell Avenue, there was a percentage of the stucco that would be replaced to get rid of the dry rot. So the initial estimate was just replace 25% of it. When we removed that 25%, we saw so much dry rot we couldn't stop, because the old dry rot does not mess well with new dry rot. So the connection point would have always been a point of leakage. So we had to replace the entire wall, right? So you get into these projects, to President DeLuz's point, you never know what you're going to get. And so it's the unknown. So some of that range is the unknown, right? You say, I'm going to replace dry rot on one wall and determine you have to do the entire wall that you did not estimate. So there's a lot goes into it. Right?
Real quick, so just one of the things I think is important to note is first of all, at this stage where we're just kind of looking at and trying to decide and set priorities in terms of cost, we're not going to do a detailed estimate on every single project. You know, to a certain degree, we're depending on Mr. Hickey's experience in terms of he's worked on hundreds, thousands of these individual items. So he has some experience in terms of having an idea of what the range is. If it's, you know, if it's something that we're going to do and it's going to be a really easy fix, all the way to something, if it's going to be something that's going to be very complicated. And so that's why you have, in many of these cases, very wide ranges. I think the other thing to note is one of the reasons why government projects cost more is because, well, the state requires that government projects cost more. They require that school projects cost more. They require that between the number of inspections, not just by the city and by the county, but by SMUD, but by PG&E, by the state building architect, by the state architect, by you know, all of these various different agencies that have to come out. And then, oh, by the way, we have to pay for inspectors to be here. Then there's prevailing wage requirements and all those things. So government agencies wind up paying more because government mandates that we pay more. And I wish we could pay less. I wish we could go out and compete with the private sector and pay market rate for all of our projects, the same, or, you know, pay for the same cost that we pay to put a fence on around our house. But unfortunately, that's not the environment we live in the state of California.
Take Main Avenue for an example. There are 6 early childhood education classrooms being constructed right now. 6. Right. What's the cost, Logan? Those classrooms are 950 square feet with a bathroom in the middle. So that's $1 million per classroom. That's why your costs is the way that they are. $1 million per classroom, and it's less than 1,000 square feet. And there's nothing in those classrooms. They're not even brick and mortar. They're modulars.
I have a question, or I guess for Superintendent Chen, as we're looking at these priorities. And I'm not looking for like a dollar amount, but based off of best practices, based off of common materials that we've, you know, tended to use, is there an opportunity to maybe drill down a little bit more on what those costs would be so that the range isn't so broad?
For which projects?
For these ones here. Yeah, for these ones here. Like, can we look at like what's the best practice? Like, we have this fence. Is this the fence that we use at all the sites? And then what would that cost today? Like, just thinking about things that we've used in the past and kind of, you know, the best practices.
Well, if you give me direction that this is the priority that you want me to do more research in, then I would do that. That was just our recommendation of what I think is a priority in the district. versus all 35 projects. So if that is what you would like me to go more in detail, then you all will give me direction to do that. I'm not sure today, but I'm just saying.
If you go over these projects today, the lower end of these costs, right? But the district does not have many standards in building construction. I think Mark has a couple around the color, paint, a few things, but you don't have district standards, so that you don't have a standardized cost. Because if you look at all the new schools have been built, there's no district standard. The architect decided what the design would look like. Some school districts choose their design from an off-the-shelf design. All these schools were designed from scratch. So one way to control your costs is go with a project that's already gone through DSA. You save money on the architect, you save money on the inspections and a number of things. They're called pre-check designs. So that can save some costs as well. There's a number of ways to look at expenses. But to your point, it would be a great idea for the district to develop their own standards. So now when you go out for a project, that scope, you can scope it down to the lock that you want on all the doors, the manufacturer of that lock, whether the door is metal or wood. It's a good idea to have your standard. So when you come to these projects, you do have a better idea of what it's going to cost up front.
Is that something that should be part of a master plan?
Absolutely.
Right.
Is it something that can be developed from our past projects? So like, can we look at our past projects and create a standard for fencing, create a standard for doors, and create a standard for whatever we can create a standard for?
The quick answer is yes. You can take any project and everything, every piece of material, lock, keys, concrete put into that project, it has a list. They're called as-built. All your as-built documents will give you everything. And if you would take any school and say, this is going to be our standard.
Well, let me rephrase it. What would it take to create a standard from our existing projects?
It's easy. You got the as-built. You just go into as-built, right, and just copy and paste it if you want to adopt that as your standards. But then you have to decide which school you're going to choose, because none of your schools operate on the same standard. Right.
Yeah, that's what we would have to do. Like there's certain things at the preschool that are new that I would choose a different lock or a door.
So is that a Mr. Langley kind of question, or is that I mean, what's involved in that? Because I'm not going to know the best fencing based on the different sites, or the best doors based on different sites.
I think that's a further discussion. Mr. Langley has a lot of history, so he might say, let's take a look at the fence at this school, the doors at this school, the carpet at this school, the locks, the bathroom locks at this school. That would definitely take a conversation.
And also include cost to repair and maintenance. I was just saying to include costs to repair each of those items.
When I was in the house of the director of facilities, I always allowed the maintenance director to give me the standards. To the board member's point, it comes down to cost and the maintenance. So since they had to keep it, the upkeep and the maintenance and the repairs, I allowed the maintenance department to choose the standards. But it can be done a variety of ways. If you have one site you like better than the other ones, Mark and I can go through it and standards, but that's a much broader conversation, because then you may have a negative impact on the ability on the low bid process, because you may have a standard lock, and there may be another one that's at same quality but cheaper, but you have spec'd out a much more expensive item. So.
One other thing you need to be careful of is, as you do construction, unless we're building a new school, if you're doing other work at a specific site, if you go with, for example, an as-built standard for another site, then all of a sudden you're going to have two different standards on one site. You're going to have two different types of locks, two different types of windows. And so one of the things you may want to consider is having that done actually on a per site basis, as opposed to a district-wide basis.
Good point. Yes.
I heard something mentioned a couple of times, and that was bond. And as a community member, that's a bit scary to hear sometimes, but I think if one thing is evident is that this community supports the district in ways that many don't. The last two bonds, K and H, passed by 68 and 74-77 respectively to each one. And I think one of the things that really helped and that may really help the facilities master plan, especially the priority list, is at the time the board and Superintendent Reyes did an extensive workshop and planning and going into the district, which I think is what drives more people into the boardroom, that there's not enough action happening out of the boardroom. But I think that would be something really, really nice to consider. However, as I'm looking at certain things on even the master plan priority, it would take a lot of education to help the community understand why it's so important to get a shade structure, right? Because you're comparing a classroom to a shade structure. Now, I know why the shade structure in the TK and kindergarten area, Glenwood, is so important, and the stormwater drainage, when most of our community doesn't have that, why it's so important to schools. But I think that would be something interesting to start exploring. And then going back to my original comment and going back to what our trustee Hamilton Starks mentioned, is if the board, and maybe not so much for the community, but especially for the board, to develop that very actionable item for the master plan priority as to what the projections at today's cost versus a projected cost of 4 years from now, 6 years from now would be.
Something to keep in mind, when a bond passes those high percentages, you do not have to have a bond oversight committee. It seems to be an advantage, but it's not necessarily an advantage. Even though it passes with a high percentage, you can still ask the board to establish a bond oversight committee, so you can serve on that committee to help help the board establish how that money is going to be spent, prioritize it. So you can still have a bond oversight committee if the district chooses to. You don't have to by law, but it's a choice. Yes.
Hi. So I'm looking at the notes from the last facilities meeting in 2025, and I noticed that Taylor Street was actually project priority number 1 and number 2. And then now we're down to number 3. In particular, it was talking about how we had 10 additional classrooms, and then when they were remodifying, they took out 5 of them, so now we only have 5. So we're short 5 classrooms, and I don't really see that anywhere on the Taylor list. I know Taylor has a lot, so it could be just included in there. But yeah, I'm not really sure why we got moved to number 3, especially when safety is such a high concern.
Let me just, I know you guys came in late because of your open house and multicultural night, and that's okay. And let me just reiterate, in the beginning, we recognized and stated that Taylor is our priority, right? But there is going to be a question of, is it something that we make an investment to modernize or rebuild? And either of those answers is way more than 7 million that we might have access to current reimbursements. And so that's probably why you don't see them as number 1, 2, or 3, because that cost is, that's a further conversation, because the cost for one of those is more than just the current reimbursement funds. That would lead to discussion. If that's something we want to do, we would have to have a conversation of a future bond.
I just had a question. If the board chooses to implement standards either by school site or across the district, how would that impact our schools and our master plan if, for instance, we chose a standard for our doors, for example? So at Taylor Street, we have, my door is just a metal door. We have doors that are metal doors with peepholes. We have doors that are metal doors with windows. So if we pick a standard, is that something that then we're holding our school sites accountable to where now every school needs a new set of doors? And then how does that fall into this? Or does that get moved to the deferred maintenance list that's a mile long?
Because it's a much broader conversation. Going to the door issue, makes sense. Mark has a small warehouse. So if he only had to warehouse one type of lock, one type of door, and it minimizes the space that he needs. If he has to warehouse 20 different types of doors, 20 different types of whatever, then his need for space grows, or he's going to be limited on what he has on hand. So therefore, it's going to take him longer to do the repair if he has to order everything because something breaks. That's really the big benefit to standardizing everything. It helps Mark out, and it narrows the space he needs. In a very small space, he could have at least one item on hand that the district could need if it was a standard. You know, every district has a grand master key. Most school districts, they have that one grand master key because that key has been lost. There's about 20 grand master keys. All the locks, you know, are different. And so if you could standardize it and get the district down to just one key, that's a tremendous cost savings. As we think about this, what we hear, standardizing is a challenge. So keep that in mind. It's a good conversation, but it has such broad implications that it may be best to do just a site standard as opposed to a district standard, because what Mr. DeLue said earlier, if you standardize it now, everything that you have on your sites is going to be a mismatch. It's difficult. Yes.
Good evening. I just wanted to make a comment. My daughter's outside, so I have to go, but I'm just really appreciative of the staff at Taylor, and I'm appreciative of this conversation. I've been in this district a long time, and these are the first conversations around facilities. I also came from Main Avenue to Taylor, and to see the vast difference in facilities, I think the board is understanding kind of what that is, because I've lived it and I've been there and here. So I just really appreciate that we're having this conversation, and I'm very hopeful that the priorities continue to be, you know, Taylor is definitely in there and in the conversation, and action is starting to get done.
It's definitely in the conversation, but to the question you had about how priorities have shifted, if you have this conversation every year the priorities are going to shift, because things change in a year. Conversations change, participants change, you know, the dollar amount changes, right? Issues doesn't change, correct? You know, last year, the big item was the central kitchens. Kitchens don't even spoke of anymore, right? So every year, if you do this once a year, which is something that I always recommend, have a rolling 5-year facilities and master plan. You should adjust it annually, because you establish needs for the following year. Next year, your needs are going to change. So you should revisit this conversation at least annually.
And yes, this all starts with a discussion, and to have that discussion, we need lots of input. You mentioned, are we going to replace every single door in it? No, we're not going there yet. No. Yeah, this starts with a discussion, because even that statement, like if we did replace every single door, that's going to be a tremendous cost, and we don't have that kind of money. So no, this all starts with a discussion. And I just want to say one other quick thing, because we've heard the word bond tossed around a lot. I have not mentioned that word. And I'm not mentioning that word. And let's be clear, I worked on the last 2 bonds, and I walked at the district. And the reason why I'm not mentioning it right now is because that's a totally different conversation. Okay, so I'm trying to just, you know, focus more right here. And yeah, that is a conversation. It's just not the one that I plan to have tonight.
Well, I'll throw in there just a couple of things real quick. What I appreciate about this conversation is I think we're all realizing that, you know, one of the things about making a lot of these decisions is there's a lot of nuance that goes into all these decisions. It seems like every different question you ask raises 2 more questions. And so asking those questions, bring those things up. We may not have the answer, but that's all a part of the discussion and why we're holding this workshop. The one to the issue of bonds, I am going to mention bond. And the reason why is because we can clearly see that there are needs. And to be honest, I don't even know that if we decided to do a bond in the near future, that it would cover all of these needs. You would still have to have the prioritization. And I know bond sometimes with people is a dirty word. People don't want to hear bonds because you know what? That means more money out of our pockets. But in the end, here's the thing. In the state of California, this is how we've chosen to finance facilities. This is how we've chosen to pay for the places where our kids, our children are going to go to school. And if that is going to happen, if they are going to have the facilities that we desire for them to have, to a certain degree, the state's going to come up with some money. But to a large degree, it's going to be us, the community, who are going to have to do it. And that's why we put bonds up for a vote, for the community to have that say. And we're doing this because we want to make sure that, number one, that we can do whatever we can to make sure we're meeting the needs of our community and our students. But number two, we want to make sure that you all have a say in that, have a say in what that looks like, so that when it does, if it does, if it does, or when it eventually does become an issue of going to a bond, you can feel like you've had your say. You can feel like you've had your input, like your voice has been heard. The other thing has been very important to us is making sure that whatever we say we're going to do, we do. Because I think that's what's helped the community have a lot of trust in this body, both before I got here and since, is that we were very, very conscious of the fact that this is not our money. None of this is our money. This is the community's money. These are the community's resources. And it's important to us to make sure that we're good stewards of those resources.
I echo that. I'm not advocating for or against a bond, but I will say that this particular board, when given a bond, has done an outstanding job. I challenge you compare to any other district. They have not squandered a penny. That $46 million from Measure H, they put to good use. And if you were here before the first bulldozer went into the ground, you will know how phenomenal of a job they have done. This place was something. Not
vintage. It was very vintage.
Not only did you not want to send your kids here, the employees did not want to come to work. Your last superintendent, he and I went on a tour, and what he spoke of passionately when he was a principal, he said he hated to go to work. He got busy with that bond. The board was very supportive. Ms. Chin has followed that legacy. And so if that is a conversation, this particular board you're not giving a better group access to funding when it comes to student and facilities.
And just to add on a little bit, the reason why I have not brought it up is because I'm looking at these numbers, and Mr. Hickey is right. The last bond was $46.1 million. We decided as a board, go big or go home. And we put a lot of work into that, and we went big. And I don't recall it passing at the margin that you said. I remember it barely passing.
No, 74%.
It did, okay, 74.
Yeah.
I remember on election
the night of it was
the night of, yeah, and we were kind of like we were deflated. So it took a lot to get there. I'm glad it was at 74. I never went back and looked at that.
And we also we did the 2/3 bond, not the 55%.
And we did that because we were like, let's do this, and it's an investment. Let's go all the way, as opposed to the first bond, which was what, 26 million, 27 million.
Yeah.
And we're like, that wasn't enough. We need to do more. So, and if you look at these numbers, they mentioned 150 million. That's over 3 times our last bond. So that's why I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's focus on this right here.
LA Unified School District just passed a $35 billion bond.
Billion.
You can go into their schools. They don't look anywhere as great as yours. Taylor Street is a great school compared to some of LA Unified. But every 5 years, they pass a $35 billion bond. Crazy. Just perspective.
All right.
I do have a quick question. So if a bond, sorry to bring it back up, were to pass, we're still looking at 2.5 years until it would even be on the ballot, correct?
That's up to you.
But we wouldn't be able to get it on the ballot by this November, or would we be able to?
No.
Yeah, no, okay. So there are some items here that I think do need to be reconsidered on where their priority is, because there are certain items that cannot wait 2.5 years for us to put a bond up, mainly Taylor Street safety. And I just wanted to put that out there. We cannot wait 2.5 years to address that. So I just wanted to voice that opinion.
I think two of the issues that you're talking about, one is actually included in one of the priorities there, which is the relocation. And the other, some of the fencing issue might actually be more under deferred maintenance, which is something that we can definitely take a look at. Yeah.
So my understanding is that the idea of putting out a bond would be to rebuild the school, Taylor Street.
I don't know that we've come to that point. That's one of the options on the table.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, I don't feel comfortable deferring anything if that is a possible option in 2.5 or 3 years. So I just wanted to voice my opinion on that.
It's a valid opinion.
I guess I have a question with the timing. This Bell Avenue situation with the stormwater drain and flooding on campus also seems like a big issue. If that's addressed first and it ends up costing $5.5 million, do we have to wait until that project is finished so that we have a final dollar amount before we can then look at, say, relocating Taylor Street's office? And then how does that align if we don't have to wait with the fact that we have, it sounds like only $7 million to address the things on here? So I guess what I don't want is to have two projects that are half complete that we don't have enough money to address, and then we just have more problems.
So here's the argument for doing Taylor right away. Of those 5, it's the cheapest. Because we just refurbished rooms 11 and 12. You make those your administration facilities. The gate is already there. You just put more fencing around to force them into the office. You've done it for pennies. That's a quick answer to that issue. Just change the office to 11 and 12. Because we just redid. They're brand new on the inside. We just redid those.
Sorry, Mr. Hickey, these prices, the estimate you have over there, the lower, of course, is the lowest,
Yes.
and the higher is including contingency in case something happen. This is the worst scenario, right?
Contingencies, if we have to do something that goes through
A
DSA
worse
where
scenario.
it's structural,
That's
and then we have to get DSA plans. But if we just do tenant improvements and fencing,
correct.
The fencing will be a small ADA issue. It should be a quick, we should be able to go to DSA quickly, but just to solve that issue, we could do it probably for less than $150,000.
And let me just provide clarity. The priority there is not what I recommend we do in order. Those are just certain things that are really something that needs attention to. So while Bell is number one because it's the issue is really something we need to address since I've been here, and I've only been here 3 years, right? It doesn't mean that you can't do 4, 3, 4, 2, 5 in that order. If this was just a priority list that I wanted to make sure that there was a discussion. So not the order of projects.
And,
And the superintendent is offering this as something for the board to look at and approve and give her direction. So we went from the large list, 5 per site, 5 for the district, help drive the conversation so that the board could give the superintendent some direction.
Yeah, I have no problem. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no problem with these 5, particularly items 1 and 3, and looking further into them. And yeah, I have no problem with doing that right away, especially since number 3 takes care of some of the fencing issues, and the other issues we can get Mr. Lange on right away and make sure that we don't have dogs getting into our fences and stuff, and people, by the way, so I have no problem with this list right here, particularly items 1 and 3.
And I would say item 2 is the priority only in that not being taken care of in the long run or in the mid run could wind up costing us a significant amount more money, because obviously dry rot doesn't go away. Dry rot only expands, and it only gets more expensive. So that's why I'm comfortable with this list once again. Man, that Bell Avenue.
Sorry, Mr. Hickey, you said that we are fighting, kind of advocating to try to get some money back for the Bell Avenue through the architect firm, right?
Absolutely.
How far away are we? No way? No?
Part of the issue is they changed ownership. They've changed names, and some of the the folks have transitioned. But it is a conversation that they have been willing to have. They have even brought a team out to look at it themselves to suggest what could be done. But overall, the issue is still the slope of the. So if you do something at the lower level, which is what we have been focused on, the rainwater is still coming down from the lower level because of that slope. So overall, the slope of that site needs to be mitigated. And that's where a lot of the costs may come in, is that mitigation. But I think it's a smart move for the district to continue to have that conversation with the new owners, because the conversations are well documented. They have not said it's not. They acknowledge that they did some things that were wrong, and so that injury should have a price.
So is this a question of superintendent to architect, or lawyer to architect, or lawyer to lawyer, or what?
A resolution we need to sign something?
It's probably a time to get an attorney to send them a letter.
And that's one
It's
of
the
the
time
money
where
we
you have to
can.
give me direction.
There we go.
So I guess, unless there are more questions from the community, what's our next?
Board Member Hampton Starks had a question.
I was just going to say like one more thing. Mr. Hickey, can you go back to the page that had the goals on it? And for me, as I'm like thinking about all of this, I want to make sure that whatever decisions we make are in line with what we say that our strategic facilities goals are. And I hope that I don't know if we can take this slide and post it on our website, so then people do know that, this is kind of like our accountability check right here.
Excellent situation.
I like that.
And I want to say one last thing. Getting the power down to all the crosswalks is going to be a challenge. There's no reason why we can't do this. It's probably lowers that price tag. We may not have the flashing lights, but we should still have it posted correctly, and painted correctly. And so you can satisfy some of that.
Solar
Yeah.
flashing light.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Have there been any changes?
Oh, you could. Mark's not going to like it because he has to go deal with it. You should go with battery powered.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, the
Solar
paint and the signs, that doesn't seem like much of an issue, but that's the power. So.
And so this cost was running electrical, from the site down to the crosswalks to do the flashing light. So you can mitigate that cost as well.
So just for clarity, next step, since this is the workshop
there you
and
go.
that there's no action being taken, when the facilities master plan, the entire plan is presented to the board, right, for approval. At that time, you can give me direction or more detailed directions of how to move forward. While I've taken notes, right, at the board meeting, so it is documented, that's when you can all give me guidance on how to move forward.
And Mr. Hickey, as we wrap up, I know that there's quite a few public comments and some of the questions have been answered. I'm going to read through that list. Again, it is lengthy and I know some things have been answered, but the public does say, so Julian says, I'm a mom of 3 who attends Glenwood. One of them currently in kindergarten. Unfortunately, he's unable to fully enjoy recess because the playground structure has no shade. Mr. Frost says the TK area at Glenwood. Keep in mind, these comments are sporadic, so there's no really direction as to when the comment was made throughout the evening. Another comment from Mr. Hefner says, is there a way to view these lists electronically for those of us that are participating virtually? Those of us that are on site daily live it day to day and might differ in opinion of what priority might be. Sean, our children deserve better. Ms. Manis, what was the many reasons not to have a shade cover over play structures for TK through 6? We live in a climate where it gets very hot. August late October, then March through June. We shouldn't settle for it's better than before. It's not enough for our kiddos. Ms. Brea says Glenwood has the highest enrollment and has been outgrown. We need classrooms, and office space, and no room for enrichment classes. Ms. Hefner continues, our enrollment numbers taken into account. Glenwood is possibly has the largest student population, and we're out of rooms for fitting our students into. Another comment says, my son burnt his back on the Glenwood play structure, still has a scar. Janet says, I also agree with Ms. Hefner's concern regarding accessibility to this information for those participating virtually. I appreciate the opportunity to review the requirements and priority lists for Glenwood Elementary virtually, as parents, staff, community members who experience the campus on a daily basis may offer valuable perspectives on which improvements should be prioritized based on school current needs. Another parent has said, please fund shade structure for TKK play area at Glenwood to protect student health and safety. Additionally, consideration should be given to adding more classroom space and possibly gymnasium, as students participating in PE and sports activities are often exposed to extreme heat condition. The cafeteria is also heavily utilized for multiple lunch periods and after-school programs, highlighting the needs for additional multi-purpose space. Another parent says, my son will not wear shorts to school because he says he will be burned on recess. My kid goes to Glenwood Elementary, and I'd like to see a shade cover over the playground for the health and safety. Our children deserve shade for the playground. I want to see copies or a link we can view the paperwork. Before prioritizing expanding pre-KK, TK, can we focus on making current area safe? Our children are not safe playing outdoor or in a play structure that is zero shade. Another parent agrees with Ms. Jennis, and yes, I echo what Ms. Jennis shared. Our scholars deserve a proper art space in order to grow their skill set. It is much more than just an enrichment, it is a space where students can shine. Another comment says, give our kids the art class they deserve. Well said, Ms. Jennis. Thank you, Ms. Jennis. I echo our students deserve the space. And then another parent, Ms. Hefner, says that the yellow mat is not only properly installed, and again, these are comments that were done throughout the evening. So the yellow mat that is also not properly installed at Glenwood, it is not flush with the asphalt and now a tripping hazard. Another parent says, let it build it then, as it's for the kids. Our children are the future to invest. Yes, we need shade for our kids. Speaking on ADA, can we address the sidewalk to parking lot to crosswalk issue? There should be a slope there. So unsafe at Glenwood. Another parent, Ms. Baron, says, please approve funding for shade structure for TKK yard at Glenwood Elementary. Our youngest students have no heat relief and have been waiting since 2024. Master Robert says, I have cited students who've tripped on yellow truncated dome mat by the intermediate playground daily. It is incorrect installation. It is unsafe for blind folk. Another parent says, our TK kinder yard needs shade structures at Glenwood. Health and safety should be number one. The intermediate playground at Glenwood is also really hot. My student has burned twice and still has a scar. I agree with Glenwood needs an NPR. We need more shade for students at Glenwood, especially in TK kinder playground. There's no relief during hot days. Janet says, please approve funding for shade structure for TK Kindergarten. Our younger students have no heat relief and have been waiting since 2024. Please include this in the budget plan. I'm going to read this one in Spanish and then I'll interpret. Hola, soy la mamá de Julián, el hijo de TK en la escuela de Glenwood. Me gustaría hacer una sugerencia respecto a las condiciones del patio de juego donde nuestros hijos tienen su recreo. Es necesario tener sombra en el patio durante los días solados y en casos es casi imposible que ellos disfruten su recreo. ¿Podrían, por favor, considerar esa solución? TK parent at Glenwood is suggesting shade structure at the TK playground. It's unsafe to play in the heat and is necessary for students to play under shade. Ms. Brea says, same fencing issue at Glenwood. It is easy for people to come in and out. Students have eloped many times. We have people come on campus over the weekends and leave inappropriate things behind. Another parent says, since Mr. Hickey has experience in this breach and security, has this been mentioned to anyone? And then another parent has mentioned this is unsafe. I completely agree with her. A map should not be accessible to anyone outside at Glenwood. Or then the teacher interpreted previously message. And then I'd like to understand why shade structure was not considered priority when when it has been requested since 2024. Mr. Hickey, has this been a says that the district can quote one to two quotes for construction. Is there a minimum number of bids required? Parent comments, please approve funding for shade structure for TK Kindergarten at Glenwood Elementary. Our youngest students have no heat relief and been waiting since 2024. Please include this in your budget. Another parent has mentioned our children deserve to be protected and safe and be safe. Another comment says, please approve funding for shade structure for TK Kindergarten Glenwood. My daughter is currently attending TK next year, and I want her to have a safe place to play during the school hot days. Ms. Hefner comments, a concern of quality goes towards our new playground structure at Glenwood that flooded several times during the first year of use. Deep puddles, standing water for several days, and unusable play structure. Another staff has commented, I agree with Ms. Hefner's question at Glenwood and enrollment numbers. We have the highest number and are in great need of classroom and space. Please consider adding classrooms to a sooner phase. Master Robert mentioned the play structure that we waited forever for utterly unusable for days at a time due to poor drainage and grading at Glenwood. Please approve funding for shade structure at TK Kinder, Glenwood. Our young students have no heat relief and have been waiting since 2024. Please include in your budget. Master Ramos says, good evening, board members and Superintendent Chen, and thank you for hearing our voices tonight. As a third grade teacher at Glenwood, I want to advocate not only for shade structure for our students, but also for the future growth of our school. As you've already heard, Glenwood has the largest student population in the district, and it is important that our campus expands properly to accommodate. Another teacher comments, I second the playground. The quality of work was not there, especially for as long as our students were out without a playground. Mr. Ramos then continues, both students and staff, our community continues to grow and our facilities should reflect the reality. Our students and teachers deserve a safe and functional supportive space where they can learn, teach, and thrive. Thank you for your time and consideration. Another parent has commented regarding quality of construction and blaming the labor. I'd like to follow up on that by asking the inspection process, even if laborers are on the new side, and what are the inspections? Another comment says our children's health and safety should be top priority. The district should be ensuring thorough inspections are happening at every stage to mitigate these construction issues. Another comment, let's be in agreement that we tell you what we see, you will acknowledge what we say, and give consideration to our concerns. Another comment says having an email would be great to tracking purposes, as well as because as Glenwood parent have raised some of the concerns with district directly already. Comment continues, I'm hearing a lot of excuses for why issues aren't being addressed. Teachers are here to teach. There should not be an expectation that they spend years following in issues inhabiting their teaching. The expectation should not be individual spends years sending reminders about maintenance or technology issues. And lastly, in Spanish, I'll now interpret. Hola, por favor, pueden apoyar para que puedan poner sombría en la área de juegos en la escuela de Glenwood para que nuestros hijos puedan estar seguros en el tiempo de calor. It just says, hi, can you please ensure that we are supporting shade structure in kids' play area at Glenwood Elementary so that our kids can be secure during hot weather? And a public comment.
I think everything was addressed. Or the question, is there a minimum bids? There's no minimum. There's one bid, then that company gets the bid. There's no minimum. There's a avocation for shade structures in the district, which is good because it's on your list, right?
Okay. So with that, if there's any more comment or discussion?
Thank you.
All right.
Great conversation.
All right. With that, we'll move on to board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Hamilton Starks?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Cardona?
I would like to follow up about the architect responsibility.
Okay.
We can continue. Hopefully we can get some money back that we can use.
Okay. Trustee Barnes?
Nothing that hasn't already been
And I
mentioned.
have nothing. This meeting is adjourned. Sorry. Kept trying to post. So the things are.